Hi everyone, I'm Dan Pelosi. I'm so excited because today we're making my Parmesan mashed potatoes with crispy garlic and herbs. I firmly believe that everyone loves mashed potatoes, and I truly hope that you love mine. Let's get started. A little bit of prep goes a long way, and this is one of those recipes where you absolutely will get started on the right foot. I'm gonna use the Crew touchless faucet to fill my pot. I mean, I fill so many pots of water, and this is just making it so much more fun and easy. I'm just gonna lift the pot up, turn the water off, and bring it to the stove to boil. Next up, we're tackling our potatoes, which are the star of the show, but arguably the other star of the show is this prolific sink. I've got my colander in here, I've rinsed my potatoes right in the sink. I've got the cutting board that goes with the sink. I'm gonna place it over here. What's great is you can put these accessories in all different positions. I'm gonna peel my potatoes. The mashed potatoes seem to be the dish that everyone gravitates towards, and it's always a crowd pleaser. So I wanted to make the most crowd-pleasing mashed potatoes possible. How much fun is peeling a potato? Especially when there's 8 of them. Anything to make it a little bit easier is a win. The inspiration behind this dish truly comes from me dreaming about mashed potatoes for the better part of my days. My potatoes are all peeled. I gave them another little rinse, which was so easy, over the sink. And now I'm just gonna chop them into quarters right here on my cutting board. I'm a big food prep person, so the easier that my food prep can be before I get started on a recipe, the happier that I am at the end of the recipe, and I really think you can taste it in the final result. My potatoes are all chopped. They're gonna hang out here for a bit while I do the last part of prep, which is grabbing my herbs, giving them a little rinse. Just gonna go in here, wash them off a bit. Don't go too crazy, but you know, it's good to give them a nice little rinse, freshen them up a little bit. And then the exciting part is the drying rack, which is another accessory for the prolific sink. I'm just gonna separate my herbs, lay them out here to dry. If any pieces fall off, they go right into the colander. So while I go get started over at the counter, my herbs are gonna have a little drying session. I'm kind of jealous, they get to rest and I have to go work. Right, I have my potatoes. I'm ready to add them to my pot of well-salted and boiling water. You want to add them to a pot of water that's already boiling. It'll just go quicker for you. Otherwise, the water will take forever to boil with the potatoes in it. So I'm gonna add them here carefully. I recommend doing them a little by little. Don't pour them all in, it won't be fun. These potatoes are gonna boil for about 15 to 18 minutes. You'll know they're done when a paring knife can very easily slide through. That means they're soft enough to be mashed. Okay, so our potatoes have been boiling for about 15 minutes. See how it does. It went through, no resistance. I'm gonna reserve my 1 cup of starchy potato water, and then we're gonna go and strain them. Get started on the herb butter. So I have sage, I have rosemary, and I have thyme, and I'm gonna just pick off whole leaves of sage. You wanna have the nice big leaves because these are gonna crisp up, and we're gonna add half of them into the potatoes to mash, and then we're gonna use half of them for topping. That makes them super beautiful, and also just kind of proves that gravy isn't the only thing that can top your mashed potatoes. We can do other things as well. The second your hands start roughing up the herbs, that's when the scents come alive. So I will just take my sprigs of thyme and just kind of run my hands down them. You just don't want the actual stem in your mashed potatoes because it's not fun to eat. If you're good at making messes, this is your time to shine. I'm pulling off these little bunches of sprigs of rosemary. There's a lot on here, so you don't have to pull off every individual one. If you sort of pull it from the base, they sort of separate a little bit, and it's okay if they stick together. You just don't want any of the really woody parts to make it into your potatoes. If you have family around and you want to keep them busy, if you have kids around, this is a great task for them. It's all about bringing in other people to help you, especially during the busier cooking seasons of the year. My fingers smell amazing. We have all of our herbs pulled. I'm gonna throw my butter into this pan and get it nice and melted and frothy. We're also gonna add some olive oil in. The two fats mixed together are gonna add a really gorgeous depth of flavor to the potatoes, and they will both absorb the flavor of the herbs and the garlic. Mashed potatoes tend to be a pretty simple dish, so I like to add as much as I can into them to really make them robust. Let's stir this, get it combined, let it melt. You don't wanna go too high with this because you don't want anything to burn. My butter and my oil are well combined and they're starting to bubble slightly, so I'm gonna go ahead and add my herbs in. I'm gonna make sure they're nice and coated in the butter. Give them a little stir, and then I'm gonna let these go for about 10 to 12 minutes. Keep an eye on them. Every stovetop is different. You don't want them to burn, you just want them to get nice and crispy. While they crisp up, we're gonna mash our potatoes. I've got about 2 tablespoons of sour cream going in, half a cup of Parmesan. A little more won't hurt anyone. So I'm adding 1 whole egg and then the yolk of another egg into the mashed potatoes. They are gonna add a nice richness and body to the mashed potatoes that will have you just so obsessed. The final thing that we're gonna add is a bit of that potato water. It's still warm. I like to add it at the end so it melts the cheese and it gets the eggs cooking a little bit. And then I use a hand masher. I think it makes for a bit of a chunkier, but also creamier potato. I don't like my potatoes to be too perfectly whipped. I see a few cheese pulls happening from all that Parmesan. I really wish you could smell what I'm smelling. It is amazing. These herbs are perfectly crispy. I'm gonna use a slotted spoon and I'm gonna go into my butter and then grab as many herbs as I can. I have a paper towel lined little bowl here. I'm gonna pull the herbs out, let them chill. The texture that these are going to add to your mashed potatoes, both stirred into them and on top, is just so amazing. I have my thinly sliced garlic. I'm gonna add it into the butter. The reason why we didn't do them at the same time is because it helps the herbs get crispy if the garlic isn't in the butter with them and vice versa. So separate may seem a little bit high maintenance, but I promise you it's worth it. I like to make sure that they land individually into the butter so they get nice and brown. I say about 7 minutes here, but 2 things. 1, keep an eye on it. And 2, you can go as crispy as you like, because that's really a personal choice. I err on the crispier side of things, but again, it'll be delicious no matter what. The flavor's gonna get into the butter, and you'll also have that little bite and that crisp. This garlic is golden brown. I'm gonna take it out of the oil and butter. These are gonna hang out, and let these hang out over here and soak up a little bit on the paper towel. So I have my mashed potatoes, and we are going to finish them with about half of the crispy herbs and garlic. And then what'll happen is I'll give them a nice stir and they'll sort of fall apart a bit and they'll give the potatoes a nice texture. You can kind of force them to break apart a little bit, but it'll happen sort of naturally. So just like with every recipe I make, I just need to do a little taste to make sure everything's right. I'm mostly tasting for salt. So, despite there being plenty of salt in the Parmesan as well as the water, I am gonna add a little more salt. If you know me, you're not surprised. I'll toss a little bit more pepper, give it 1 final stir, and it's gonna be perfect. If you're making your potatoes in advance, which I highly recommend, save the herbs in the oil for right before you're gonna serve them. It'll just help them stay nice and crispy, and you can heat up the oil and butter mixture just before serving. I'm just gonna give them some nice crevices for everything to hang out in when we top it. I'm gonna take my herbs and my garlic, crunch it up a little bit, and then just really sprinkle the top. Do you hear that crispy crunchy? And now the gorgeous drizzle. Are you ready? Delicious. Ugh. This is gonna seep into every spoonful of these and make them so good. And of course you can save a little on the side for extra serving. Perfect. I love to keep things clean as I go. It allows me to truly relax after I eat. So before I settle in and finish off the recipe and then eat it, I'm gonna get a few of my dishes done. I'm gonna set this faucet to the ring spray, and I'm gonna go ahead and give it a little bit of a boost so that I can make sure that my dishes are done perfectly. I love this sink as well because it has, again, the drying rack is right here. So all my drips end up back in the sink where they belong. For a clean as you go kind of guy like I am, this is perfection. This is the best part. I get to taste the mashed potatoes and I get to take as much as I want. So this is really such a dream. Taking a nice big scoop, make sure I get plenty of that buttery, oily topping and the crispy, crunchy herbs. It's so perfect. You've got all this crunch and depth of flavor from garlic, from the 3 different herbs. It's the perfect combo. And then because we added sour cream, Parmesan cheese, we added that egg in, we have the mix of the oil and the butter. These are the most like flavor-packed mashed potatoes you've had. I love these potatoes so much. No matter what else is happening on your table, these potatoes are the perfect accompaniment. I want to say thank you to Kohler for making cooking so much easier and more efficient. And if you want to make these potatoes yourself, head to food52.com. I hope that you love them.